and Jurisprudence at the Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria. He's going to be joining us in a bit. But before we get to the talking points this morning, topical news stories as usual. And in topical stories this morning, President Muhammadu Buhari has flayed the attacks on public property as well as the country home of President General of Ohanes Ndibo, Professor George Obiano in Imo State. The president, in a statement by his spokesman, Malam Garba Shehu, yesterday described as deeply distressing the destruction in Imo State of buildings and assets of the police and the home of Obiano, a leading voice of modernization in the affairs of the country. The president, who strongly condemned the violence in the region, urged everyone to maintain peace, adding that the law and order situation in the entire southeast was being reviewed. The Zamfara state government says bandits' attacks have left over 700,000 persons displaced in the state. The state's commissioner for information, Alhaji Ibrahim Magaji Dosara, disclosed this to newsmen in Kaduna. This is as the state government has recruited 4,200 community protection guards, including ex-servicemen. Dosara said the humanitarian ministry in the state had established 8 centers to take care of the IDPs across the state. The Chartered Institute of Forensic and Investigative Professionals of Nigeria says 70 to 75% of Nigeria's national budget is lost to corrupt practices at all levels of governance in the country. The president of the institute, Dr. Enakwe Victoria Eshitu, said this at a press briefing in Abuja. She said the loopholes would continue if the right mechanisms and cogent interventionist measures were not put in place to check the trend. And to part of our talking points this morning, the Commissioner of Police, Anambra State, Echeng, has given the marching orders to heads of tactical units, divisional police officers, as well as heads of departments across the command to strictly enforce the state government's ban on touting and illegal revenue collection. The governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, had in his inaugural address on Thursday announced the ban on touting and illegal revenue collection. In a statement in Oka on Sunday, Echeng tasked officers and men of the command to ensure full compliance with the order, especially at motor parks and other designated places. And on that note, we get to the conversation this morning. We're talking Soludo solution and Obiano detention. Our guest is Dr. Chibike Amuchazi, lecturer of international law and jurisprudence, Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria. He's joining us in a bit. Stay with us. To witness in the next few months or coming days, as we have seen that in a number of states there's a new governor there. They say there's a new sheriff in town, in person of Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo, who was sworn in last week in a number of states. And while that went on over last week, the weekend, after the swearing in, some events took over the spotlight and took away from the shine of that inauguration. The inauguration speech, a beautiful speech that was given by the governor of Anambra State, wasn't so much talked about. Other things overtook it, took away, the attention from that speech and what, he said at the inauguration ground in Anambra State. Today we're joined by our guest, Dr. Chibike Amuchazi. Dr. Chibike Amuchazi is one person who has followed the conversation with us. He was one of those who spoke with us in the build-up to the elections in Anambra State. Post-elections, he spoke with us, and he was one of those who predicted that Professor Charles Soludo was going to win the elections in Anambra State on the All Progressives Grand Alliance, or on the platform of the All Progressives Grand Alliance, APGA. Now, after post-election, he spoke with us, and now after inauguration, we're speaking with him again. But Dr. Chibike Amuchazi is a lecturer of international law and jurisprudence at the Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria. He's also an APGA stakeholder in Anambra State. Dr. Amuchazi, thank you for joining us. Good morning. And it's good to have you.
Good morning to you. Good morning to you. Thank you for the time.
Yes. Now, let's get to the conversation about Anambra State. You're one of those who has followed closely the events in the past few months. Now, you finally have a new sheriff, as they call him, in town, Professor Charles Soludo. He's deputy governor Dr. Ibezim. Now, we see a situation where two, public intellectuals, if I'm allowed to call them that, are running a state for the first time, a professor and a doctor, the governor and deputy governor of the states. What does that signify to you? What are your expectations from these two people?
Yeah. First, what it signifies to us, and not just to me, it's that it's a realm of intellectuals. So this is one thing we've been agitating for in Nigeria. We've tried every other discipline and sphere. There's been chances given to businessmen. There's been opportunities given to technocrats, or rather not technocrats, but, all sorts of people, industrialists and all of that. Now, there is also this observation about who really is a politician and who has been in the helm of affairs in Nigeria. Is it the astute politician or the technocrat who's coming from purely a civil background? What we have in Anambra State now, it's leadership crested on a civil background. And it's amazing, isn't it? Because, at this time, there's an opportunity given to intellectuals who's been theorizing all these years. These intellectuals are the people who get us prepared for leadership from the classroom. And again, we sit back and watch to see the results of people who would run with the ideas that has been given to them by these intellectuals. It's amazing that at this time, haven't had it, if you like, wrongly in Nigeria all these years, that an intellectual has now gotten into the seat of affairs, particularly in Anambra State. We have some of them here and there in Cross River State as elsewhere. But Anambra State, it's very significant because of what it represents in contemporary Nigeria. It's a business hub, it's a technical hub, it's a financial hub as well. Now, management of these three key things in society, it's very pertinent. So we want to see how it's going to play out in the hands of the intellectuals. And we're very optimistic, knowing Professor Soludo, that he's coming with a lot of capacity. He's done it before in the central bank, he's done it before in the global stage, and now he's narrowing it down to Anambra State. We're very firm, we're very optimistic, we're very certain that as an intellectual, he's going to actually draw out the pathway for a successful governance in Anambra State, which is essentially going to be a model for other states in Nigeria. So we are very, very, very happy with the scheme of things. And you can see, can't you, that just a few days after the inauguration, he's actually gone to work. It's not just about going to work. It's about the things which he's been publishing as key things he's actually going to tackle at this time. That optimism, that drive, the energy we see coming from him makes us feel excited that eventually Anambra State is going to breathe some scoop of fresh air.
Well, I listened to Professor Soludo on, at the inauguration, and his inaugural speech. For me, I listened to that speech and I said, this speech, invokes hope. This is the kind of speech that people want to hear. But it's not always just about talking. It's about action. You just said that that he has gone to work. Now, people always judge the lifetime of an administration by its 100th day in office.
Yeah.
What are your expectations between now and the next, next few days to, summing up to the 100 days in office of Professor Charles Soludo?
Yeah, as a stakeholder, I could tell you that there is a fine plan that has actually been couched for 100 days ahead and even beyond. Right? The transition committee had worked effectively with the governor, and they are looking at scores. So they've put the plans in scores, and a lot is going to be happening, within this time. Now, going back to what you said before about his inauguration speech, I agree. It is not necessarily about speech work. It is about actually putting into action those things which we have detected or those things which we have planned out to do. Now, there is something that is, if you like, a common truth in Nigeria. It's about having the will to do certain things, but certain factors not allowing that leader to do those things. Now, that's essentially what happens in the political realm. But there's something fantastic about Professor Chukwuma Charles Soludo. He's been patient, and just when he came in, He's been trying to weed off the astute politician from interfering with matters of government. Politics is for the politician, and that has some space in the scheme of things in the Anambra State. But then, of course, government is serious business, and he wants it so. So he's even come to air to say, look, politicians, stay away from me. I really want to do this job, and he doesn't want anybody interfering. And if you see what's going to be happening a few days from now or in the coming weeks, you can agree that he's trying to make a separation between governance and politicking. Now, the matters of appointment is going to, for want of a better expression, shock everybody. Shock everybody because it's not going to be conventional. I can tell you this, Prince. It's not going to be conventional in the sense of people lobbying for positions. And of course, you could see that because what he immediately did, for the first time in the history of government in Nigeria, was to throw open the matter of appointments. If you are qualified for a particular seat and you are an Anambra person and even a non-Anambra person, you are qualified to apply. He wants to look at merits. The system at this time wants to look at merits and not necessarily who knows who and where you're coming from. This has been the problem with Nigeria. Putting round pegs in square holes has essentially been the problem. We've seen in Nigeria where people seek offices without qualification, without certification, and without capacity. So we've seen in Nigeria where an engineer will be taken to a ministry of God knows what, where some person from an odd background is brought into the engineering ministry, is brought into the agricultural ministry without any background knowledge and competence of what the job requires of him. So, we think it's a step in the right direction, where Professor Soludo, the governor, have said, look, let it be open. If you're qualified, you apply. And it doesn't matter how many applications it's going to get, but it's going to be narrowed down until that qualified person it's absorbed into the system to do the job. So there's no politics in this. There's no, I'm coming from Mr. B or Alhaji C. And on that basis, we're going to bring you in. Now, the fundamental thing you're going to ask is where lies politics in all of this? Have people not contributed in the process of electioneering, which now produce Soludo as the governor? Oh, yes, they may have. But then, of course, this is an astute, staunch leader who is saying back to those people, there are no kingmakers in this time. Right? There's no kingmakers at this time.
Would that be entirely true? Because while delivering that speech, his inaugural speech, he recognized the fact that he had a gentleman agreement with the former governor, Chief Willie Obiano, and that Obiano, kept his part of the bargain 4 years after to hand over power to him. Or and for me, that didn't sound, democratic.
No, I don't know how you define democracy in this sense. The context of democracy, as far as this subject is concerned, it's not really very expansive as you expect. Democracy could be taken out in many respects. We are talking about a party and how it has decided by itself to choose a leader or successors. Now, there's nothing undemocratic about that, insofar as the various stakeholders as an assembly had, in a constituent manner, agreed to that system or to that process.
Sorry, I'm going to have to cut in here, because we saw a situation where some of the situations, I mentioned earlier, two events that took over, the public discourse around Anambra State, leaving out the inauguration and the governor's speech. One was the slapping that took place at the inauguration ground. Another was, the former governor being arrested by EFCC on his way out of the country. Now, one of those, people have said the reason why the slapping took place was because the wife of the former governor approached Lady Bianca and asked her what she was doing there when she was one of those who publicly campaigned against Professor Charles Soludo becoming governor of Anambra State. And if that was so, it would mean that some members of the party were not really in support, especially, those who can be considered kingmakers, and the party were not really in support of Charles Soludo becoming governor. What do you say to that?
Yeah, that's not entirely true. The party was strongly behind Professor Soludo, and there was a democratic process of primary elections. So, that support was essentially divided at the time. Some people had people they were following, and people believed in other candidates. But at the end of the day, that support was consolidated when Chukwuemeka Soludo emerged after the primaries as the candidate for the APGA. So that's not true. And then with respect to the other matter of slappings and assaults and battering on the inauguration day.
We'll talk about that, Dr. Amuchazi. Yeah. We'll get to talk about that. But in the meantime, let's listen to that speech. We have an excerpt of, the governor's inaugural speech. We'll listen to that a bit and then come back to continue the conversation. Please stay with us.
Yeah, that's right.
Ladies and gentlemen, introducing.
Today I come with a sober heart, conscious of the enormity of responsibilities on our shoulders and the challenges ahead. Yes, there will be time to celebrate. We will celebrate when security of life and property is guaranteed and law and order is restored. When every child of schooling age is in school. When every school child is receiving the 21st century education for the digital age. We will celebrate when everyone, especially children and women, can access quality health care, where the cost of doing business is down to near zero. Our roads are hard and we have an efficient transportation system with no one having to wait in traffic for more than a few minutes. Until we have access to 24-hour electricity and our streets are clean and green, our cities, communities and markets are planned and clean, the many millions of Chaliman workforce and the vulnerable persons are lifted up to realize their God-given potential. And all our pensioners receive their gratuities and workers are paid their leave allowances and contractors paid, we will not celebrate. Until our youth get jobs and business opportunities, until the youth in Zone 9 become global serial entrepreneurs, we will not celebrate. Poverty, until poverty is near zero and the income levels rising. Yes, I will not celebrate, and certainly not with the taxpayers' money. I come to this job prepared to serve you. For 12 years since 2009, when I first indicated interest to serve you, I persevered through the turbulent politics, and here we are today. Once again, I present to you the Soludo solution. Our contract with the people, which we intend to vigorously implement, subject to resource availability. Our contract with Anambra people derived from 3 seminal documents. The Anambra Vision 2070, a 50-year development plan which I shared the drafting. The Soludo solution, a people's manifesto for a greater Anambra. And the third is the Transition Committee's combined report, which builds on the first two documents. In sum, ladies and gentlemen, this is an agenda for an itinerant tribe in search of a livable and prosperous homeland. Driven by the philosophy of one Anambra, one people, one agenda, our goal is to build Anambra into a livable and prosperous smart megacity. We aim to transit beyond petroleum to the digital world of the fourth industrial revolution and envision Anambra as an industrial technology and leisure entertainment hub of West Africa. Our detailed plan rests on 5 key pillars. The first is law and order, and that is homeland peace and security. The second, economic transformation as Nigeria's next axis of industrial tech and leisure. And fourth is competitive and progressive social agenda to deal with education, health, youth, women, and vulnerable groups. And then governance, rule of law, and the rebirth of our value system. And finally, to aggressively tackling our existential threat posed by the environment. And that's towards moving towards a clean, green, planned, and sustainable cities, communities, and markets.
And that was Professor Charles Chukwuma Soludo, Governor of Anambra State, there in his inaugural speech, making what some people have referred to as, really big promises, huge promises, and really big comments there about the issues, promising a whole lot of things that needs to be done, that his administration, or his solution, as it's called, Soludo solution, would take care of. Professor Dr. Amuchazi, I'd love to ask, listening to that speech, what stood out the most for you as an Anambra person and as a party member?
Well, good good governance. That's the only way to sum it up. I mean, what you call promises is not necessarily promises, but they are plans. Government is essentially about plans. And what the governor has done is to just read out the plans which he has for the states, and that everything contained in that statement or in that speech is essentially important. There's nothing that stands out the most from the other than the fact that there is a new system, there's a new block of plans that's going to come out to assure good governance and integration of the people. If you give a proper definition inauguration speech, the only way you can summarize and express it is that the needs of the people would now essentially and principally be the guiding principles of governance. The needs of the people, and not the needs of a cartel, not the needs of the governor, not the needs of a privileged few, but essentially the masses is going to constitute the principles for government, as it were. So it's a laudable speech, it's a good one, and we are rest assured that the governor is actually going to put into action all that which he has couched as a plan.
Now, one of the things that happened on that day was the fact that, the governor said, we're going to work immediately, and he closed the ceremony and said, we're going to the office, we're going to start, I'm going to have my first meeting, especially with security meeting. And he said, according to him, security is top priority. As a tease, do you see the Soludo solution as regards security really working out? Because one of the first things he has done is to say there won't be touting Anambra State anymore, and he went on to order the commissioner of police to ensure that touts leave Anambra State. He said that the touts would leave Anambra State, and even the touts were shouting and screaming yes in support. Do you think that this is going to play out? This is actually going to work, because Anambra State is one state where illegal collection of revenue, touting all over the place is so popular. Do you think that that's going to that this administration would be able to save Anambra from the touts?
Yes. Well, you see, the point is that it's not just peculiar to Anambra State. The matter of touting and illegal collection of revenue, it's spread out in Nigeria everywhere, in Lagos as a hub, in Abuja, wherever it is you want to mention. And what we are doing in Anambra State is that's why I said Anambra State is eventually going to be a model for other states to replicate the principles of governance. So we want to try it out in Anambra State, a complete extermination of that illegality. So what Governor Soludo has done is to prescribe touting, is to prescribe illegal collection of revenue, so that what is due to the state actually comes to the state for the good of the people. Now, let's not paint Soludo as a small god. He's not one. He's only human, and he's going to do his best. The first thing is to have the plan. The other thing is to initiate and implement that plan. We pray for a smooth implementation of the plans. One would eventually work hard, which he has promised to do, to ensure that these plans would actually come to play. So we can't begin to say whether or not this is going to happen or whether this is going to be successful. But what we must applaud, which becomes an encouragement to that governor, it's the will to even interfere with such illegality. I use the word interference because, for want of time, we will not want to speak about how that system of illegal revenues go on. But it is unfair for some people to take over a particular sector of a state and then take for themselves whatever they are able to grab by way of illegality. Now, those people are also people who stand in the way of governance. Those people are people who some would imagine to be, if you like again, gods in the state, which you do not tamper with their affairs. But here's a governor with guts, here's a governor with will, seeking to do that which has never been done before, which stands out as impossible. We can only encourage him and pray that this will come as a success, and of course also participate in the process to ensure that it becomes successful. How do we participate in the process? It's to give 100% compliance to any directive the governor or the government has given. The police must play its part and its role. The people themselves must play their part and their role. They must never be intimidated by these touts who would again come and unleash some kind of terror upon them to seize revenue from them. If the government has made a pronouncement, I expect Anambrarians to actually comply to that. I expect the security outfit to work with the government to ensure that this actually go out. Now, see, Hannah, so one thing about this revenue collection is that you never know how wealthy a state may be until what is due to that state internally in form of internally generated revenue begins to accrue to that state. Now, so much reliance and financial placements must not be given to the center in view of allocations that come. A state must plan to stand on its own, and then whatever comes from the outside becomes supportive. After all, some of us have always been arguing on the system of complete autonomy of states, and not one that is, which of course obscures true federalism, and not one that is surviving through the center. So it's a step in the right direction. We're not saying he's a god, but we are saying that we're going to encourage him and that he has the capacity to actually successfully carry out that plan of exterminating touting and illegal revenue collection.
All right. We're talking this morning, Soludo Solution, Obiano Detention. Our guest is Dr. Chibike Amuchiazi, lecturer of international law and jurisprudence at the Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria, and ABGA stakeholder in Anambra State. Stay with us. The conversation continues. We'll be talking more. We'll be talking about the slabs and the arrest of Chief Willie Obiano, the former Anambra State governor. Stay with us.
Some they hustle, some they walk. Everybody wants to be boss. Make you listen, you go hear sounds of victory in the air. Going on low. Going Musa go Sarayaga go no low. Chevy something good is happening. Something good is happening. Something good is happening. Help me sing it, la 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 la. Something good is happening. Something good is happening. Something good is happening. Help me sing it, la 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 la. You dey walk, make you no forget to the ball. Life is sweeter when we learn to cherish the things we get. Calling on low, Korean Musa go Sharaki go no low. Say what feel sorry go shebi holo. Something good is happening. Something good is happening. Something good is happening.
Spice up your day. Spice up your day. Tune in to a breath of fresh air. It's all fun and games until it gets extra and better. 102.3 Extra. Wicked.
Eagles Morning Rise. Eagles Morning Rise with
The time is 9:38. We bring you into the conversation. Feel free to join in now if you have comments, thoughts to share with us. 09073530044 and Soludo Solution, Obiano Detention. Joining with your 2 cents. Send us a message on 09097054450. My guest today is Dr. Chibike Amuchazi, Lecturer of International Law and Jurisprudence, Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria, and an APGA stakeholder. We're bringing a caller now. Hello, good morning.
Good morning to you, good afternoon.
Good morning. Mayo, it's good to have you.
Good morning to your guest. I think he has tried in his capacity to give answer to all the questions. Except one way here, I disagree with him. Professor Soludo as the professor at the Superior for Corporate Government. I think that may not be correct. I think it depends on individual and what the perception they have and what they are bringing to the people of Anambra. You can have even a pastor and come to government and perform like a business. I will only appeal to Professor Soludo and his colleagues to speak to the promise they have made to the people and make sure that they deliver the mandate, the promise they have made and ensure that there is growth and development in Anambra. I wish him well and I believe that God will stand by him to keep to his promise. God bless my dear.
God bless you too. Thank you so much for calling. We're taking more of your calls now. 09073530044 and 090 Detention. Now, before we get to talk about the former governor of Anambra State, Chief Willie Obiano, who was arrested by the EFCC, another event that took over, public discourse was the slapping of the wife of the former governor, Eberichukwu Obiano, by Lady Bianca, someone who is considered an ambassador who should probably know better. Some people have criticized that she came out to say she did the slapping in self-defense. The wife of the former governor says she only went there to greet her, and the next thing she was greeted with a slap. Before we talk about that, a caller is here. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
My name is Prince from Abuja.
Prince.
Yes.
Good to have you, namesake. Go ahead. Let's hear you.
I like your conversation on Anambra State because Anambra is one of the strategic states of Nigeria, and mostly in the southeast. First of all, let me say congratulations to the Professor Soludo for winning the keenly contested election in Anambra State. I watched his performance when he was bringing on board the issue of the reformed banking system we have today. That you can keep your money in the bank now and go and sleep. Even if the bank collapses or goes into financial distress, AMCON or whatever will come and buy over the bank, and you continue to have your money the same way. You don't need to panic anymore, unlike before. And if a bank collapses, all the depositors will lose their money and things like that. I think Soludo coming on board, that experience was gone for good. So we cannot keep our money in the bank and go and sleep. Even when Diamond Bank merged with Access Bank, we didn't lose our money. We can continue like that. So I can see that Soludo is somebody who has the pedigree, qualification-wise, and the work antecedents to manage institutions very well and successfully. Now that he has become governor of Anambra State, I want to advise him on one thing. He should try to follow the example of Lagos State to develop Anambra. And what's the example? Are you with me?
With you. We're with you. We can hear you.
Yes. Lagos State is one state in Nigeria that whatever... And how does it happen? By engaging the private sector in every facet of governance, especially the provision of critical infrastructure facilities.
Okay.
Lagos State government has set the pace. There was a time they established what is called the BRT project. Money was taken from the bank to be paid in 18 months' time. Do you know that that loan was repaid after 14 months, and the banks were surprised? So I want to advise Soludo to always engage the private sector in providing enabling environment for economic development in Anambra State, engage the private sector in power production for electricity, in post building, in management of airports. Anything is doing, we should not do it alone.
All right.
There are powerful individuals and institutions that have the technical know-how and the funding to come in and manage Anambra projects on behalf of the government, so that it can leave great legacies as it's going out, and it is going out of office, handing over to the next coming government. So I wish you well, and I know that you shouldn't depend on federal government for anything. You should regard one coming from federal government as a windfall. So let you concentrate and look internally on how to develop Anambra State.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you so much for calling. We would have to let you go so we can, wrap up the conversation. Now, Dr. Muchezi, sounds like a lot of people seem to support, Professor Soludo's administration. Mayowa says he's concerned that it's not enough to just be professor or to just be an intellectual to run a state like Anambra State. And the Prince is saying, let's also have a situation where the governor pays attention to the private sector, have the private sector, and use maybe, model Lagos State or copy the Lagos State model to develop Anambra State, where it can successfully run itself even without the help of the federal government. What are your thoughts on that? Before and then right after that, please respond to the slapping scenario, the back and forth. There's been he says, she says, the other says, and that conversation going on around that slapping event. Please respond to those.
Yeah. Okay, very quickly. We're not here saying that competence or indications of competence is essentially drawn from one's qualification. But even so, qualification means a lot as far as the process of leadership is concerned. But again, let's be quick to remind people that Dr. Soludo was not necessarily elected on the basis of his being a professor. Professor Soludo was elected on the basis of competence because he's done it before. He's been in the central bank. We saw how organized and what he introduced and how he was able to restructure the system and the banking sector, which of course is key to the economic growth of Nigeria. But then again, we also saw his competence displayed on the global stage. Professor Soludo means a lot of things worldwide. So it wasn't just about the letters. Was the considered reason for which he was elected. So on that premise, I'm going to fault anybody who expresses that opinion. With regards to the matter of the assault on the inauguration day, well, I do not know what other callers have said about that, and I hope I'm not going to disappoint anybody, but I define it as an entirely personal and domestic affair, and I do not wish to entertain that subject. It's not a good thing, after all, it's in public, but again, the governor has apologized on behalf of the state for such anomaly, especially playing out on a very significant day, and I think that discussion must stop since the governor has intervened in the matter.
Now let's talk about Willie Obiano, who was arrested on the same day after handing over on his way out of the country. Many have said you plundered the wealth of the state, according to them, based on the accusation by the EFCC, who said he had been under the radar for quite a while. And then once making exits from the country, just like we saw some years back with the LMSIA and the rest of, and this is recurring. How do you respond to such a thing? How bad was it under the administration of Governor Obiano?
Yeah, well, using the word plundering for me is not appropriate at this time. We're not sure whether he has plundered anything. Investigations have not even commenced. There's no report from the EFCC. There are no comments. There are no commentaries at this time, so we can't even say what has happened. Well, people can suspect anything. It's easy for one to say, well, there's been looting, there's been this and that, but those information would not be credible until there is substance to it. So we're not saying anybody has plundered anything, but we think that the arrest of the governor, who just merely left the seat, is quite abysmal. Now, there's so much to talk about in this matter. The first is that the EFCC as an institution stands as one to circumvent grafts, if you like. But why we should be talking about graft at this time in our national development and in Nigeria, it's most unfortunate. It's now become a trend, and there's nothing new about what has happened to Governor Obiano. It's now a trend that as soon as a governor leaves office, the EFCC would mostly invite that governor, and then what happens from then depends on the circumstances surrounding the case.
Well, the question would be, why would the governor, after the handover on the same day, want to exit the country?
Yeah, exit the country at the time, yeah. Well, there could be many reasons. One reason that he has given is that he was going for medical attention. Now, for me, that's completely out of place, because we've been one of those who've been advocating for shutting down on politicians and people who have the wherewithal to actually resort to medical care on the outside. We don't see any reason why a governor would want to go outside for medical attention, whereas you had the opportunity to develop the medical sector in your state, as it were. And I have once said this in a conference, that I felt appalled some time ago, many years ago, when the Vice Chancellor, names withheld, a sitting Vice Chancellor of a Nigerian university had all of his children studying abroad, whereas at the time he was Vice Chancellor of the university, and all the courses where we checked that the children were actually studying abroad was essentially offered in his university. So this is really, really very appalling. So if you had advanced that reason, the reason why he's leaving the country for medical attention, that's completely out of place. I condemn that. There is no support for such acts. Now, but otherwise, there are many reasons why nobody says as soon as you leave office that you have to stay back in your state or in the country. There could be international concerns. Reasons why you have to leave the country immediately after government. There's nothing wrong with that. But if they had given the excuse to the medicals, then there's no support for that sort of thing. Because 8 years in government, you would have done better with the teaching hospital and the public hospitals in your state. And if you haven't developed it, you have no reason going outside Nigeria. Whereas other citizens of that state do not have the capacity financially to follow suit.
Dr. Chibike Amuche is the Lecturer of International Law and Jurisprudence of Faculty of Law, University of Nigeria, and ABGA stakeholder. Thank you so much for sharing thoughts with us this morning. Really appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
Well, it seems like we can't take any more calls, but we have this one. I'll squeeze this one on before you go. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for joining us. What's your name?
Sorry, I was speaking before. I didn't actually show the slapping scenario that took place. I think in Abuja during the operation of the new governor of Anambra State. Let me quickly say that. Are you with me?
I'm with you. We can hear you.
Yeah, let me quickly say that that was a personal thing. I shouldn't occupy the public space for discussion.
Okay.
The opinion leaders like the OBs there, the royal father, should look into that and know who actually offended. These two people are prominent figures, the governor of the wife of the governor, and the health ambassador to Spain, and the people's wife, Bianca. They shouldn't come to the public to embarrass members of the public. So let the opinion leaders there, the elders and the chiefs, settle down, look into the matter, know who should bear the blame. Have to apportion blame to
right.
Make sure that person is appropriately
sanctioned. Thank you very much. Thank you so much. On
the issue of arrest of EFCC by Obiano, are you hearing me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please wrap it up quickly.
Yes. The issue of arrest of Obiano, the former governor of Anambra State by EFCC, to me was a breach of his human rights.
How so?
Yes, I have to say that because when you go close to auditors, an auditor is not a bloodhound. He was not found guilty of any offense. He has not been tried, and nobody ever reported Obiano to EFCC to have done anything wrong officially,
Okay.
then why should he be intercepted at the airport on his way to Houston, Texas in the U.S.?
All right.
So
Thank you very
it was
much.
something like a bloodhound.
Again, we'd have to say thank you and let you go. And we'll drop the anchors. Thank you again, Dr. Amuchazi, for sharing thoughts with us. We really appreciate your time. Have an amazing day ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, Olije is here in the studio, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all should see her. Y'all should see her.
Somebody is enjoying in Ghana. We are here.
Oh, don't say. I envy that brother, man. I envy that brother, man. Guy. Itodo.
Anything to do to leave this.
Olije, I like the hair and I like the dress.
Thank you.
She looks good.
I like the check too.
Well, it seems like we're matching it. We're matching it.
You see?
Good to see you this week. What's happening? What do we expect on the show?
I mean, everything is fine, but let me just ask you though. So is April your vacation too?
Yeah, but I'm not traveling. I'm not traveling.
You are staying in this apartment.
Well, we'll just rest where we can.
I know you can't. This your second.
You know where we're going. We're going to stay with family. I mean, I've missed my family. I've missed my family for a while now. So April, going away.
Let's hope it's towards the end of April, because we are looking at some incentive for staff, you know.
Are you serious?
Yes. Let's move it.
Only J. Don't come and bribe me. All right, guys, stay with us on your radio experience. You can count on Business News is up next, and Olije takes over on 102.3 Extra in a bit. Stay here. My name is Ihanacho Prince. Bye for now.
Eagles 102.3.
Welcome to Eagles 102.3 News Bits. Here is the Business News Beats. The Debt Management Office has disclosed that the federal government has incurred 950 billion naira new domestic borrowing between January 2022 and March 11th, 2022. The fresh borrowing was disclosed on March 17th in a presentation of the public debt data as of December 31st, 2021 by the Director General of the DMO, Patience Oniha. In the statement, Oniha disclosed that the federal government was considering all options to raise funds externally. According to the government, the federal government still plans to borrow an additional 1.6 trillion naira, while the 2022 debt target for domestic borrowing is 2.57 trillion naira. There is also a plan to borrow 2.57 trillion naira from foreign creditors, while 1.16 trillion naira is expected from multilateral and bilateral drawdowns. The House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts has written to the Group Managing Director of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, Kyari, over audit queries issued against the NNPC and its subsidiaries. The committee, which had accused the NNPC of shielding its 17 subsidiaries in the effort to get them to respond to the queries on their expenses from 2014 to 2019, has now asked the GMD of the NNPC to produce their heads a specific date. Chairman of the committee, Oluwole Oke, issued the summons in a letter to Kyari dated March 16, 2022. The subsidiaries include the Nigerian Petroleum Development Company Limited, Kaduna Refining and Petrochemical Company Limited, Pipeline and Product Marketing Company Limited, Duke Oil Company Incorporated, West Africa Gas Limited, and Nidus Marine Limited, which are to appear on Wednesday, March 23rd. Also, Hysi Nigeria Limited, Nigeria Gas Company, National Engineering and Technical Company, National Petroleum Exchange, NNPC Pensions Limited, and Warri Refining and Petrochemical Company are to appear on Thursday, March 24th, 2022. The queues by motorists in Abuja and other northern states have refused to clear despite the supply of about 1.824 billion litres of fuel by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. The NNPC on Sunday denied claims that it had reviewed the ex-Coastal, ex-Depot, and NNPC retail prices for petrol downward. It described the claims as fake news in a series of tweets via its official Twitter handle. Figures obtained from the company on Sunday showed that between February 14th and March 13th, the oil firm released a total of 1.824 billion litres of petrol in a bid to keep the country wet on petrol. But the queues in filling stations, which was triggered by the import of adulterated fuel in January this year, refused to disappear and has persisted for about 2 months. Meanwhile, the presence of black marketers who sell petrol in jerrycan is currently a normal sight in Abuja, as some filling stations in capital city now dispense fuel far above the approved price of 162 to 165 naira per litre. Power Power-generating companies on Sunday said the Nigerian market was under threat based on the recent claims by the Nigerian Bulk Electricity Trading Company PLC that only 5 GENCOs had active power purchase agreements in Nigeria. Speaking under the aegis of the Association of Power Generation Companies, the GENCOs faulted the claims by NBET as the APGC stressed that the statements of the bulk trader would further scare investors from investing in the sector. The Executive Secretary of APGC, Joy Ogaji, who disclosed this to journalists in Abuja, explained that the absence of PPAs as claimed by NBET entailed the GENCOs were exposed to the vagaries in the downstream electricity markets. She said the fact that NBET claims that they have only 5 active PPA entails that most of the purchased power do not have power purchase agreements. The Minister of Mines and Steel Development, Olamileko Adegbiti, has stressed the need for more professionalism and expertise to ensure the development of the mining sector of Nigeria. The minister, who was represented by the Director General of Mining Cadastral Office, Obadiah Income, said this during the 57th Nigerian Mining and Geosciences Society Annual International Conference and Exhibition in Port Harcourt. This was contained in a press statement issued on Sunday by the ministry. It added that the country needs people with competence for it to get the full potentials from the vast mineral deposits spread across every state and local government area. He enjoined them to come up with clear, actionable initiatives that would help drive the vision of the ministry in actualizing its mandate to diversify the economy through the sector. And finally, the Pension Fund Operators Association of Nigeria says the contributory pension scheme is helping Nigerian workers to save for retirement and provide funds for infrastructure development. The operators therefore urged workers to increase their statutory deductions, noting this would enable them to raise the aggregate savings balance over time. The association said this in a statement obtained on Friday. The statement noted that many Nigerians do not have any other form of savings except through this contributory pension scheme. That's the news. I am Palum David. Good morning.
Thanks for listening. Join us again for more updates on Eagles 102.3 Abuja.
Eagles
sounds like this.